The tires hummed over the winding rural road, the one I'd memorized from childhood, the same road that led to my quiet lakeside retreat. After 6 long months working overseas on a remote construction site, I'd dreamed about this drive home more times than I could count. I could almost smell the pine trees and hear the distant call of loons over the water. All I wanted was to throw my bags inside, crack open a beer, and sit on the porch my grandfather built 40 years ago. But as I rounded the final curve and the trees thinned, what came into view made my stomach twist. I slammed the brakes so hard that the truck skidded on the gravel, dust clouding the air around me. The scene ahead didn't make sense, not at first. My cabin was still there, its faded green roof peeking through the oaks. But it was flanked by 3 new buildings, freshly built wooden cabins, perfectly lined up like soldiers, all uniform and wrong. They looked brand new. Clean siding, identical porches, and flower beds full of bright mulch. I got out slowly, staring like I'd just driven into someone else's property. The air smelled like sawdust and paint, not like the damp earth and moss I remembered. There were solar lights along the gravel path, ones I'd never installed, and a shiny metal sign staked in the ground that read, Lakeside Community Cabins, HOA maintained property. I blinked hard. OA, there wasn't supposed to be an HOA anywhere near here. My cabin sat on private land outside the township lines. I'd paid off that mortgage years ago. I owned this property outright. Before I could process anything, a man in khakis and a tucked-in polo came briskly walking from one of the new cabins, clipboard in hand. He had that same smug efficiency I'd seen 100 times on job sites. The kind of man who'd tell you what to do before even asking your name. "Excuse me, sir," he called out, his tone clipped but polite enough to hide the condescension underneath. "You can't park there. These are private units under Lakeside Community Association jurisdiction." I just stared at him. "Jurisdiction," I said slowly. "This is my land." He smiled, the kind of smile people wear when they think they're talking to someone uninformed. "Sir, I'm not sure where you're from, but this area was rezoned earlier this year. The HOA has been overseeing development on this section for short-term rental cabins. If you have a concern, you'll have to bring it to the board." He gestured toward the little office trailer parked at the end of the drive, complete with an AA banner strung across it. My pulse was starting to rise. "Let me get this straight," I said, stepping closer. "While I was away, someone built 3 cabins, right here, on land I own." He hesitated for the first time. "Well, the parcels were approved for development under community management. Everything went through the association president, Mrs. Karen Densby. Maybe there's been a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" I repeated, my voice low. I looked around again, trying to keep calm, but fury was bubbling under the surface. My old cabin's porch was blocked by construction equipment, and one of the cabins had its porch practically touching my property line. They'd even cut down the big pine by the driveway, the one my grandpa planted when my dad was born. Only the stump remained, freshly ground down. I marched past him toward my porch. The wooden steps creaked like they always had, but the doormat was gone. My lock was untouched, at least. Inside, everything was just as I'd left it, though I could hear distant hammering from the new builds. That sound used to mean progress to me. Now it just sounded like trespass. I sat on the couch for a moment, trying to calm the storm in my chest. 6 months gone. 6 months where no one had any right to touch my property. I'd paid every tax, filed every form, and locked this place tight before leaving. Yet somehow, 3 luxury cabins now sat like parasites feeding off my land. By sunset, I was on my laptop, running through county records with my slow internet connection. It took hours, but I finally pulled up the official zoning maps. My parcel, Lot 42B, had not been rezoned. The parcels next to it had been part of a community development project, but someone had conveniently redrawn the boundary lines in their filings. My lot had been folded into theirs without a single legal signature. Fraud. Plain and simple. I called the county assessor's office first thing the next morning. The clerk on the other end sounded as confused as I was. "That can't be right," she said after checking the files. "There's no record of your consent or any sale agreement. That land still belongs to you, Mr. Harper. It looks like someone used an old survey file to push through the permits. I'll flag this immediately." Her tone shifted from confusion to quiet anger. "You should contact law enforcement," she added. "And maybe a lawyer." I spent the next few days digging through every document I could find. Old deeds, tax receipts, and the survey map Grandpa had kept rolled up in a coffee can behind the porch boards. Everything proved one thing: they'd built on my property illegally. On the 3rd day, I drove back to confront the man with the clipboard. He was there again, measuring something by one of the new cabins. "Hey," I called out, stepping from my truck. "I've got confirmation from the county. This land isn't yours. It's mine. You've been building without permission." He froze, his pen hovering over the clipboard. "That's impossible," he said, but I could see the uncertainty flicker in his eyes. "The HOA president handled all the permits. Then you tell your president she'd better call me before I call the sheriff." That night, I sat on my porch, watching the reflection of the cabin's porch lights shimmer on the lake. My land had always been quiet before, only the sounds of crickets and the wind through the trees. Now there was laughter, the faint hum of generators, and the occasional car pulling up late, dropping off guests for their rental cabins. They were already making money off me. The injustice of it all hit hard. My grandfather had worked 2 jobs to buy this land. My father grew up fishing off this very shore. And now some self-appointed HOA board had decided they could claim it like it was just another empty lot. I made myself a promise right there. Under the moonlight, I was going to take every inch of it back. No matter how many lawyers, boards, or smiling clipboard men I had to face, I wasn't backing down. This land had my name carved into its bones, and soon everyone, especially Karen Densby and her precious OA, would know exactly who they were messing with. The morning of the meeting, the air felt thick with purpose. I'd been awake since dawn reviewing the stack of papers I'd compiled, land titles, county assessor reports, certified survey maps, and a freshly stamped court injunction. Each document was a weapon, and I was ready for war. For weeks I'd endured the sight of strangers walking across my lot, parking their cars on my soil, and treating my grandfather's land like a weekend getaway. Every nail that went into those cabins had felt like one into my chest. But today was the day it would all end. The county officials had finally confirmed what I already knew: the HOA had built everything illegally. The evidence was airtight. I drove to the community center where the HOA held their meetings, a shiny new building funded by community improvement fees. My boots echoed against the polished tile as I walked in. The room smelled of coffee and entitlement. Around a long oak table sat 7 people in business casual clothes, all mid-conversation until they noticed me. The air went stiff. At the head of the table sat a woman who could have walked straight out of a suburban satire. Perfectly pressed pastel blazer, pearl necklace, and that controlled smile people wear when they think they're untouchable. That had to be her. Karen Densby. She rose from her chair, extending a manicured hand. "Mr. Harper, I assume." Her tone was sweet but rehearsed. "We've been expecting you. Please have a seat." I understand there's been a misunderstanding. I didn't shake her hand. Instead, I placed the thick folder I was carrying right in front of her and sat down. "There's no misunderstanding, Mrs. Densby. You and your OA built 3 cabins on my private property. That's called trespassing and unlawful development. I'm here to make sure you understand the consequences before I let the county handle it." Her smile twitched for half a second. "Now, I understand your frustration, but you see, the association approved the expansion under the rezoning plan. Everything was done by the book." I leaned forward. "Then maybe you should read a new book, because according to the county's official map, the rezoned area stops 80 feet short of my boundary line. You forged or falsified the map extension, and you filed permits using a parcel ID that doesn't even belong to you." Murmurs rippled around the table. A man in a checkered shirt adjusted his glasses and started flipping through a binder in front of him. Karen kept her composure, but her knuckles whitened on the table edge. "That's a serious accusation, Mr. Harper," she said evenly. "We followed all necessary procedures. Perhaps your records are out of date?" I pulled another document from my folder, sliding it across the table, fresh from the county clerk's office. "Signed and sealed yesterday. My title is clean. My taxes are current, and here's the court injunction. Effective immediately. The HOA has no jurisdiction over my land, and you're to cease all activity related to it." Her eyes flicked over the legal stamp, and I saw the realization sink in. The man beside her stopped flipping pages. Someone in the back whispered, "Oh my God." Karen tried to recover. "Surely we can reach some arrangement," she said, that polished tone cracking slightly. "Perhaps the association can compensate you for the inconvenience." "Inconvenience?" I snapped. "You bulldozed trees my grandfather planted. You dug septic trenches through my soil. You built rentals on my lot without even knocking on my door. That's not an inconvenience. It's theft." Her face went pale. "No. Let's not use such strong words," she said quickly. "We acted in good faith. You acted in greed." I cut in. "And now you're going to answer for it." The room fell silent except for the faint hum of the overhead lights. For the first time, The authority she wore like armor began to slip. The others were avoiding eye contact with her now, shifting uncomfortably in their seats. I stood and gathered my documents. "Here's how this is going to go," I said calmly, though my pulse thundered in my ears. "You're going to remove every structure you built on my property. Every board, every nail, every bag of concrete. You're going to restore my land exactly as it was. You'll have 30 days to do it, or the county will seize your assets under the injunction." She opened her mouth to protest, but I wasn't finished. "And before you think about ignoring that order, you might want to check your email. The sheriff's office already has copies of every document. So does the state prosecutor." I made sure of it. Her mouth snapped shut. I turned and started walking toward the exit. Behind me, one of the board members muttered, "Karen, you told us the permits were solid." I was told they were," she stammered, but no one looked convinced. By the time I reached the door, the room had erupted in low, anxious chatter. The mighty HOA board was crumbling under the weight of its own arrogance. I stepped outside into the crisp air, the weight of months of anger lifting from my shoulders. Over the next few weeks, the fallout was swift. The county launched an investigation into the AOA's financial dealings. Turns out Karen had been rerouting association fees into her personal account and using falsified maps to push illegal developments. The story hit the local news. OA president under investigation for land fraud. I didn't even have to lift a finger after that. The homeowners who'd been bullied by her for years, fined for mailbox colors, lawn lengths, and driveway stains, finally had their revenge. Memberships were canceled, lawsuits piled up, and within a month, the HOA formally dissolved. The day the last cabin came down was one I'll never forget. I stood by the lake, arms crossed, watching as a demolition crew, paid for by the AOA's liquidation fund, dismantled the illegal structures piece by piece. Each slam of a hammer felt like justice echoing through the air. When the last truck pulled away, the ground was bare again. My land looked raw but honest. No more numbered cabins, no fake private property signs, just open sky, whispering pines, and the glint of the lake in the afternoon sun. That evening, I rebuilt the porch railing that had rotted during my time away. It felt good to work with my hands again, to reclaim what was mine not just on paper, but in spirit. I found one of Grandpa's old nails buried in the soil near the stump of his pine. I kept it, cleaned it off, and set it into the new post as a reminder. When the sun dipped low, I sat on that porch with a cold beer, the lake rippling gold in front of me. For the first time in months, the silence was peaceful again, not the tense quiet of waiting for a fight, but the earned stillness of victory. I thought about Karen, about how untouchable she'd looked in that pastel blazer, and how quickly that mask had cracked. People like her built walls of authority, rules, and fines to control others. But all it took was one truth, one voice unwilling to bow, to bring it all crashing down. Now, the property was mine again, completely legally and spiritually. No OA, no board, no clipboard men. Just me, the cabin, and the land my grandfather loved. I raised my bottle toward the lake and whispered, "We got it back, Grandpa." The wind stirred through the trees, and for the first time, it felt like the land was breathing free again.